Father Fred Caldwell. I'm a Catholic priest from the Diocese of Dallas, from Dallas, Texas. And I am making a little bit of a series that I want to share with you about what my faith has and how it has been enriched by studying the Bible. Now, on this Facebook, sometimes people get really nasty with one another, and there's not going to be any of that. So you don't need to worry that there's going to be anybody condemned or anything belittled or anything. I'm just going to tell you how I decided to study the Bible and how I did to study the Bible. Now, it's a good thing if you have a pencil and a paper, if you get that to start with. Get a pencil and paper and your Bible, because I'm going to be sharing some scriptures with you. So we're going to might as well, start, if we're going to be from the beginning, let's go to the very beginning. I was born in a little town, Wilburton, Oklahoma. Little town had 1,909 people. The sign never changed. It's just like every time that somebody died, somebody else had a baby. I guess something happened because it never changed. Well, I went to grade school there. Then I went to high school. Then there's a junior college there. I went to a junior college and got my first 2 years in college. Then I went to Southeastern State College. Now it's a university. But it was that back then, it was Southeastern State University. I went there and got my bachelor's degree. Now, that school is a teacher's college. So the natural thing for me to do was to go teach. So I got a job in a little bitty place called Addington, Oklahoma. It was so small that we didn't have enough students to continue having school there. And after just a few years, they shut it down. I hope it didn't have anything to do with me. But anyway, I left there and I went to another town in Oklahoma named Madill, Oklahoma. When I got to Madill, I taught there for a year. And then two of my friends graduated from college. And they told me, they said, there's better pay in other places than Oklahoma. Let's go out west. So we took off, the three of us. We went to Hobbs, New Mexico to see about getting a job. Well, it's not easy for three people that have three specialties to find a school that matches up and has three vacancies. We didn't get a job in Hobbs. And we decided, well, we'll go someplace else. We couldn't go south because we were almost in Mexico. So we said, we'll go north. So we went north. We went to a place called Trinidad, Colorado. Now in Trinidad, Colorado, there's what they used to be, they don't now, but used to be what they called county superintendents. Now the county superintendent meant that he knew what everything was going on in all the schools in the county, and this was a big county. And he said, there's one school that I might can get all three of you a job in that same school. We said, well, let's go for it. So we went to a little bitty place named Kim, Colorado. We got there in Kim, Colorado, and all three of us got jobs. Now, after a year, one of them decided he's going to come back home because he missed his girlfriend. And so he came back home. The second year, I decided to come back home. So I came back home and I decided, since I was going to school in Durant, Oklahoma, I would just go there and live. Live close to there anyway, as close as I could get if I could work on my master's degree. So I came back to work on my master's degree, and while I was there one time, a friend called and he said, you know what? We are going to a skating party. But there's a couple of things. One thing is we have one girl more than we do boys. Would you come and be the girls' dance, or be the girls' partner? And I said, sure. He said, we're going to go to a skating rink. There's one more thing. She does not know how to skate. I said, well, that's okay. I'll teach her how to skate. I didn't tell him that I had never been skating before in my life. So when we got there, we skated maybe 5 minutes, and then bam, we hit the floor. I didn't know how to skate. She didn't know how to skate. So we were on the floor, and she sprained her arm. So we had to come back to college. We got back to college, and when we were there, the fellow that had arranged the event, he took the girl with the sprained arm, and he went inside to the infirmary to have her taken care of. Well, the rest of us were sitting outside. And as we were sitting outside, I looked around and I saw his date and I thought, that's a pretty girl. So I told her, I said, you know what? I said, your date is inside there, and so is mine, and you don't have a date, and I don't have a date, so why don't you and I go out together? And she looked at me and she said, not in your wildest dreams am I going to go out with you. Well, I thought that was pretty snappy. So I started just messing around with her. We had a small campus, and so I'd see her once in a while, and I'd say, hey, when are we going to go out? And she would just look at me and either frown or ignore me. But I just kept it up because it was a game to me. But then one day, I walked up to her and I said, you want to go out? And you know what she said? She said, sure. Well, I had a lump come in my throat. My palms started getting clammy and sweaty. I had to gulp, have a hard time breathing because that's what, I wasn't used to this. I didn't think that she was going to ever say yes. And so in a crackly voice, I said, well, when would you like to go out? And she said, why not tonight? And I thought, wow, has she been just playing me along, or I don't know what was going on. So I said, okay, let's go out. I said, where would you like to go? She said, anywhere. I said, well, what about a movie? She said, well, sure. So I got back home and I was thinking, what am I going to do? I was still sweaty. It made me uneasy talking to that because she was pretty. And I thought, I was thinking to myself, I hope I don't do anything wrong, but I don't know what to do. So we went out. That was on the 4th of July. Now, you know what happened? 17 days later, we decided to get married. On the 21st of July, our first date was the 4th of July. On the 21st of July, we decided to get married. Now, I don't know how it happened. I don't know if I asked her, or she asked me, or if it just happened. But I sure fell for her, and I guess she fell for me. And all the time, I don't know if she was putting on an act or what, but she sure stringed me along for a while. Maybe she wanted me to think that I had to appreciate her. Anyway, we decided we're going to get married. Well, we didn't have any money, so we decided we're going to get married. We want flowers in the church, but we don't have money for them, so we're going to get married at Easter time, and there'll be lilies on the altar. Well, that sounded like a good idea, but as our relationship heated up, we decided we didn't want to wait that long. So we decided to get married on the 17th of December. So that's just less than 6 months from the first date. The 17th of December, we went from, will you go with me, to I do. And we did. And we got married. Now, it was really funny after that. A lot of wonderful times. But I know I was raised in a Catholic home. We had a Bible that sat on the coffee table. Nobody ever opened it. It was just kind of a decoration. Only time it was opened was when somebody got married, or there was a funeral or whatever, would make a note in the Bible. Mama would. But nobody read it. The only thing we got was what the priest would preach in the church. So now here she is. She'd been reading the Bible since she was 3 years old. So she would come to me and she'd say, I want to share something with you from the Bible. I didn't have anything to share. I said, go share with somebody else. Well, she told me that 2 or 3 times, and I told her the same thing. So finally one day she came and she said, you're going to read the Bible. So I thought, well, if you're a married man and your wife tells you this is what you're going to do, it wasn't a question of when or why or how. It was, where is page 1? So I started reading the Bible. And I had a disadvantage because I had no background in studying the Bible. But I had one tremendous advantage. Nobody was there to tell me how to read it. They weren't in one church trying to tell me to lean toward their right way of interpreting the Bible or another way to interpret the Bible. I didn't read it for what I wanted to say. I didn't read it for what somebody told me that said. I read it for what is there. And as I read that this way, it makes some people a little uneasy because they have been taught one way or another. So I'm just going to ask you, just read the Bible with me and try to forget maybe as much as you can without nothing derogatory thing. Try to start from scratch with me like I started from scratch. I was reading that Bible alone, just like I'd read any other book, just fine. And I came to chapter 6 in Genesis, and I saw that, and it would fit just like what I was thinking. I read, it said Noah to take 2 of every animal. It said plain as day. Chapter 6, you might write this down. Chapter 6 in Genesis, verse 19. It says, God said to Noah, go into that ark and take 2 of every animal, 1 male and 1 female. And I thought, that's fine. That's all I've ever heard. Everything worked fine. But then I got to chapter 7 and got stopped in my tracks. Now, chapter 7 changed everything for me the way I read the Bible. I'm not going to tell you what that is. I'm just going to say, you read that between now and next week. Because next week we're going to have episode 2. And I'm going to share with you how that changed the way that I thought the Bible should be read and the way that I read it. And it's not going to be derogatory toward anybody, but it's going to cause a lot of people to think. So I'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to me, and God bless.